Good government is extraordinarily important. Faith-based institutions are important. Nonprofits and NGOs are important, but so is business. And we need to all work together because the problems this world is facing are insurmountable right now, and we need to be working together.
Welcome to another episode of the peopleHum interview series. I'm your host Akanksha Kulkarni, and let's begin with a quick introduction of peopleHum. peopleHum is an end-to-end one-view integrated human capital management automation platform, the winner of the 2019 Global Cody Award for HCM that is specifically built for craft employee experiences and the future of work. We run the peopleHum blog and the video channel, which receive upwards of 200,000 visitors a year and publish around 2 interviews with well-known names globally every month. And now for our guest, Susan McPherson is a social connector, angel investor, and corporate responsibility expert. She is the founder and CEO of McPherson Strategies, a communication consultancy. She is a regular contributor to the Harvard Business Review, Fast Company, and Forbes, and has 25 plus years experience in marketing, public relations, and sustainability communication. She is a featured speaker at industry events. Susan is a regular guest on a variety of business and leadership podcasts and has appeared on NPR and CNN, as well as been quoted in major media outlets including USA Today, The New Yorker, New York Magazine, and Los Angeles Times. Welcome, Susan. We are thrilled to have you.
I'm thrilled to be here. Thank you so very much.
So, Susan, let's start with the interview. And the first question that I would like to ask you is, can you tell us a little bit something about your journey so far that brought you to McPherson Strategies?
Sure. Well, I often say I've had 9 lives at this point, and there was not a direct path. I started working for the late Senator Kennedy in the 80s on Capitol Hill in Washington, D.C., then USA Today, the newspaper, because I went to graduate school for journalism. And then I worked for a company called PR Newswire for almost 17 years. But I always had one foot in the nonprofit sector. I had a heart that was too big to fit inside my chamber here, and I always wanted to be helping out on the side. So inevitably, at any company I worked for, I was the go-to person for when the CEO or an executive would think, wow, we need to step up and do more for the world. Or, back in the 90s, anything from hunger to environmental causes to you name it. And I'd be tapped on the shoulder and be like, oh, go figure that out. So, I started obviously doing a lot of volunteering. I joined nonprofit boards while still remaining continuing my corporate life. And in the middle aughts, I joined the board of an organization called the Business Council for Peace, which was essentially a network of business leaders who were pooling their resources, their knowledge to help women entrepreneurs in Afghanistan and Rwanda. By doing that, it was the first time I really saw business stepping up to be a force for good in the world. And I went to Afghanistan and I spent a few weeks there working with women entrepreneurs. And there were many, many women who were working in cottage industries, in the home-based businesses, but the women we were working with were very much small businesses, small and medium-sized enterprises. So it was just a fascinating and kind of a very moving experience for me to see, wow, what else can business be doing? And it was a shift in my career to really start focusing on corporate responsibility. And I left PR Newswire in 2010, went to a boutique consulting firm, launched their corporate practice, and then in 2013, started my own company. And it was actually, and this is what nobody seems to like, everybody's like, yeah, sure. But when I started it, it was literally a placeholder until I figured out what was next. And that was in 2013. And now we're 2020, and I have a team of 10, and somehow it's working. But it wasn't part of my long plan. I often say it's the journey, not the destination. And I feel now, looking back at my life, it was all those different turns that led me here.
Yeah, so you've had a very amazing journey of roller coaster ride. It's just been
Oh,
up and down.
yes, yes. But I will say to your audience, I was never afraid of taking risks. And maybe, yes, I'm white, I'm privileged in that sense. And obviously, I didn't have the hurdles that women of color, that men of color have. So I'm grateful for that. But, when you can take risks, it's scary, but the discoveries can be magnificent. But I realize not everyone has those opportunities to take risks.
Right. That's really sad actually, but you need to take risk. Until and
Yeah,
unless you don't,
yeah,
you're
yeah,
never going to grow ahead.
yeah.
So Susan, the next question that I would like to ask you is, you specialize in tech for all, tech for good, and Deborah Rudd talks about it too. So firstly, if you could explain what do you mean by that, and secondly, why is it especially important in the world of today?
Well, I mean, tech for good is something that everything is technology today. Okay. Years ago, and again, long before you were born, you would have one person in a company that was like the person who would fix a computer, or, you know, figure out how to use the copying machine or the fax machine. Okay. There is not a day in developed countries that go by where you are not dealing with technology. And I don't just mean your smartphone. I mean, it is everything and anything. And my fear is if we don't have tech for all, we will leave millions and millions of people behind. And I was actually having this conversation yesterday where, broadband is like water. Okay. I mean, we are getting to a point in life and on this planet that those who do not have access will not be able to participate in society, because everything from healthcare to banking to your work, without that access, you cannot be participating, civically engaged in society, voting. I mean, everything that we are doing. So if we don't start making policy decisions globally, locally, nationally, to ensure that every citizen has equal access,
Mhm.
the troubles will become insurmountable.
Right. I completely agree with you. It has become so essential in our life that you can't really go without it now. And you take into consideration this situation itself. Everyone's at home. People who have the facilities of a broadband and a company who is ready to be able to do this are
Yeah,
surviving through it.
totally agree.
Yeah. So, Susan, how do you think the engagement of millennials and Gen Z workforce on social media platforms are changing with time? Like, how do you craft strategy for digital media across generations?
Well, of course, it depends on the client that we're working with, and how much are they targeting those audiences. I mean, I don't have the specific numbers, but we saw over the last 15 years the world change as millennials came out of college and took over the workforce. I mean, there are still those of us who are Gen X and boomers still around, but millennials now are out in force.
Mm.
And, we know Gen Z is the next. And Gen Z has grown up entirely online. And obviously they are very much impacted by what's happening now. But on the same token, they grew up, with an iPad in their hands. And again, I'm referring to people, in the developed countries, and obviously many countries around the world, it's not that situation. But these folks are much more comfortable in this kind of new world that we're living in. I'm certainly not saying they're feeling happy about it, but it wasn't a difficult kind of transition. Um, but they also are much more vocal about their political feelings, about about causes that they're passionate about, and they've grown up in the world of social media. So there is no hesitation on their part to speak up when they see egregious things happening around them. We know that the climate and the issue of climate change is a number one to young people, and so that has forced companies to be much more progressive in terms of stepping up to reduce their footprint. We know that young people are much less likely to judge based on sexual identity.
Mm-hmm.
We know that Gen Z in this country, 30% of Gen Z know someone who does not identify as male or female. So that means in the next 20 years, the workforce is going to dramatically change, right? I mean, we haven't even begun to wrap our brains around that. And, when you talk to companies and they say, oh, well, we've got the bathrooms down. This is far, it has so much greater ramification, but also in a positive way, it has new opportunities. Right. So these folks are going to be, setting the agenda as they come into the workforce because they are very vocal and they're not going to go away.
Right.
So hopefully that's a good answer to what you were.
Yeah, I completely agree with you. The complete generation right now, they're very rigid and they really want to change the world. And I guess it's
Yes.
really nice that people are taking into consideration their change and are resembling with it.
Yes.
So that's a good thing. So what is the correlation, according to you, between success of an organization and its corporate social responsibility?
I wish I could say it was one size fits all, and it is different for every single company, from the largest multinationals to, the restaurant on the corner that right now, is only able to deliver rather than serve food. But I will say in the last 30 years, we have seen a sea change in terms of companies making corporate responsibility a must-have rather than a nice-to-have. Right. In baking it into the business. I'd like to say it was because it's the right thing to do, but it's because if they want to be around in the next 20 years, they definitely have to use less resources. We don't have unlimited fossil fuels. They have to start thinking about how they are going to lessen their footprint while also thinking about shrinking packaging, using less water, reducing, and by doing all these things, you're actually lowering your costs, which means you can invest in renewable energy and renewable fuels and take risks. Secondly, as we discussed in the earlier to the earlier question, we have a Gen Z and millennials who are coming into the workforce saying, I want to work for a company that has a mission beyond the products it produces. Right. We live in a world of transparency now, that companies used to be able to hide things they didn't want people to know about. Well, if you hide something, inevitably someone will find out. And it's a heck of a lot better to get ahead of it and be transparent. And, in terms of philanthropic resources, I mean, just this last week, U.S. global companies, U.S. Fortune 1000 companies donated $1.63 billion to organizations helping people of color. Is that the answer? No, because they have to fix their own closet first. But I'm just stating, there's no going back. The genie is out of the bottle. There's no way companies can run away from the facts at hand that we are one planet, we are connected. What happens in their supply chain, and whether they're manufacturing in India, whether they're manufacturing in Bangladesh, affects them here. And it used to be when manufacturing was done here in the United States, you could cast a blind eye to what was happening around the world. No more. And that's a good thing, because we are all connected.
Yeah, I completely agree with that. And also the sustainability, because as you said in the previous answer, our generation, they are more relied on that. They more believe in the sustainability of a product rather than just the hype of it. Yep. So if they are going to be able to resonate with the company, then I guess there won't be anything that would stop you to go ahead with it.
Exactly.
So, Susan, just lastly, do you have any important sound bites that you would like to leave our audience with?
Well, first of all, thank you for the good work you're doing. And I'm happy to be of any help at any time. And I thank you for making corporate responsibility and tech for all an important factor, because we need it. I often say good government is extraordinarily important. Faith-based institutions are important. Nonprofits and NGOs are important. but so is business, and we need to all work together
Right.
because the problems this world is facing are insurmountable right now, and we need to be working together. And I see if everyone steps up, individuals, small business, large business, and of course all the other institutions I mentioned,
Yeah.
we can work for a better world. But we've got to get it right this time, and we've got to start really, really breaking down racial barriers. Because in the end, it's just skin color. That's all it is.
Yeah.
And what has happened in the United States this past few weeks has been raw and terrifying for so many. Certainly my Black sisters and brothers, but I do believe it's a reckoning, and I just only hope that we are now going to start to be able to make the systemic change that has desperately needed to happen. So,
Yeah, I hope we are also, going towards a better world.
yes, thank you.
Yeah. So that was amazing, Susan,
Thank
and I had
you.
a pleasure taking your interview
Yes,
today. And
okay.
your views, thank you so much for them and sharing
Sure.
your time with us. We would keep in touch with you till that time. Stay
Okay.
safe, stay healthy,
You
and have
too.
amazing time ahead of you.
All right.
Please.
Thank you. Have a good day.